Hi, my name is Lisa Brown, and this is my video assignment for conflict management. The question has been asked of us, how would you theorize ethno-political conflict? The importance being that ethno-political conflict has been a common source of warfare, insecurity, and loss of life, as noted by Ger. And what can we do to understand ethno-political conflict in a way that will gear us away from this sort of conflict in the future? First and foremost, I find it important to define the terms I will be discussing: ethnicity, ethno-political. Following, I'll explain what my conceptualization entails, what materials have been foundational for me, and how this conceptualization adds to conflict management approaches. I will basically conceptualize with the help of constructivism and my own background in philosophy. So, ethnicity. Ethnicity is the sense of belonging to a social group, that of which shares common national and cultural traditions. We hear about ethnic minorities. This grouping is simply labeling the group away from the main population. Ethno-political. Ethno-political referring to the ethnicity and political realms that merge together due to ethnical differences, where ethnicity may be used for political gain. And we see from the article, Why Do Ethnic Groups Rebel? By Sederman, Wimmer, and Min, that the most motivated groups to rebel are those that are secluded, downgraded, and underrepresented. And we also learned from this article that a loss in power and those excluded from state power tend to be those who challenge through violent means. If we look at this from a constructivist view, we can see power as a tool for socializing societies through norms. Decisions by groups are made based on values that regulate the policy sector. Changes in the nature of social interaction may lead to greater security if done appropriately. And peaceful social change, instead of a struggle for power, should also be considered. I read a working paper titled Conflict and Human Rights by Emily Pye and Thomas Deas from the University of Birmingham, and they used human rights to address ethno-political conflict. Conflict was viewed basically as a struggle of opposing beliefs, values, and ideas, much like the view of constructivism. And we see conflict arising when opposing cultural elements, territory, race, and language clash. If we manage conflict constructively, we could learn how to deal and how to bring opposition together cooperatively. The aim would be to manage and contain conflict, which starts with communication. Communication of different beliefs, communication of values, communication of norms, using communication in order to understand. Communication tends to be one of the largest problems that we have in society, from all levels, from relationships to ethno-political conflict. The goal is to constrain the escalation of ethno-political conflict by first recognizing individual needs, much like human rights organizations function. Political security is also important to consider. We must ensure that people live where basic human rights are honored, where freedom from governments who try to exercise control over ideas and information. We see this in China, controlling the internet, for example, and newspapers. This also brings us into a social constructivism of human rights. And human rights are constructed internationally in a particular way that covers a range of recognized rights. These rights are distinguished from concepts and practices, and there are different ways to enforce and implement these rights. This opens up a specific perspective that values certain interests over others. So, how does this conceptualization add to conflict management approaches? Basically, the constructivist approach opens up a different way of thinking when it comes to ethno-political conflict. The constructivist side gets you to look away from states as being the primary actor and instead keys into the individual and collective identities. Also, constructivism holds the belief in the possibility of evolutionary change. And therefore, the change we are trying to implement with ethno-political conflict is that of peace. There are certain opportunities in a conflict when peacemaking is possible, and peace building also works on multiple levels. And rebuilding social cohesion also helps with peace building, which is what we read in our module. And the possibility is there. And basically, by using constructivism and viewing ethno-political conflict, we gear towards the individual. And if you take a look at the individual and figure out what the individual needs to reduce that conflict, that is what we should pursue. So basically, I conceptualized ethno-political conflict with the help of constructivism, and I think it is important to key into how the social reality is constructed and the individual to understand how we can deal with ethno-political conflict. Thank you.